uneasiness in my heart that why is this happening? But I asked myself questions. Two questions came to mind. Why do I have to bother? Does it really matter if our professional organization had not been gender biased or had not been gender balanced in its board of directors? Does it really matter if my gender is outnumbered in this community? Is this an isolated scenario? Or is it a trend in the country, overseas, or even in the global scene? Okay, so fast forward to the present. Allow me to share with you some findings and results of research studies that have been conducted in the area of gender diversity in technology. These studies have identified gender gaps, they call it gender gaps in technology, which I classify as either external or internal. These are my own words. Okay. Now, these factors or gender gaps in technology could very well be subdivided into stages, which I illustrate here in graphics. No, like a ladder. No, the first step is education, maybe from elementary, high school, and higher education, and then employment in technology and leadership, like steps in a ladder where one has to work for and climb up to. And the reality is that many start in the first step, but who among those who remain and persist to reach the last stage? In the article, Boosting Women in Technology in Southeast Asia, Shifting from Awareness to Action in Gender Diversity, released by the Boston Consulting Group in October 2020. It illustrates these stages using a funnel, or sa Tagalog, embudo, okay, which is shown in the next slide, which from a wider education entry point, then being sifted through employment, and those who persist in long-term career in technology are those who remain in the funnel. So, matira ang matibay. Okay, so focusing on the first stage on education, the article compared the share of women in technology in percentage in higher education versus overall share of women in Southeast Asia and other parts of the world. In the next slide, it shows that in Southeast Asia, there are only 39% women in technology and 56% women overall, in contrast with other areas of the world. In other words, in Southeast Asia, for every 4 women in technology, there are 6 men. So mas malaki ang percentage no, kesa ng experience ko. Now, in employment, it presents the share of women in technology, ganun din ano, in Southeast Asia as compared to other areas of the world. As shown in this slide, there is a considerably smaller percentage, so down to 32% na. Okay. So the article further drilled down. So in Southeast Asia, okay, here in the Philippines, okay, may feedback ba? Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so in the Philippines, the funnel principle applies, no? From 48% in education down to 35% in the workplace, and very negligible in senior management and CEO or board levels. So in these stages in the funnel, several studies have identified what they call gender gaps in technology, which I highlight in this talk, which includes 3 areas: tech pro culture, retention gaps, and pay gaps. So, in a male dominated environment, the tendency of the community is to adopt what is called the bro culture. So, in the employment practices solutions of a definition, which I revised myself, and I quote, a culture of bias manifested in behaviors and decisions that support the inclusion of women in the organization, both socially and professionally. So, for instance, in 2018, there was a lawsuit against a global IT company, and it was alleged that female employees were subjected to repeated instances of inappropriate social interaction, which I simply call bullying. Some of which with gender sensitive undertones. How about retention gaps? Do women remain in schools or places of work as much as men? Say, for instance, when a father loses his job, who among the children would most likely stop studying? Or for a growing young couple who begins to have children, who between the husband and the wife would probably stop working to take care of the small children? Think about it. Okay, so furthermore, the studies identified pay gaps. In the next slide, it shows in a study reported salary gaps for women in technology and even for those with advanced degrees of up to 40. From these annual events, we have attempts to advise the members of our community by giving out research grants, recognitions, and prizes during different CSP events. In the next slide, we also awarded an all girls team in a national programming competition. It's a unique scenario to behold when you have a team of all girls. So we gave out a token of prizes for them. So in these events, we also host talks where conversations with role models have been part of the program of activities. So in the next slide, yes, so we network, we incentivize, and we continue the conversations with role models. In the next slide, we hosted the Inspired Conversations with the Filipina CEO Circle of, or the FCC, in 2019. And we also host a regular monthly event called Virtual Meetups, where we invite prominent women in technology, where they share their experiences as women in technology, um, and how they persisted in their field of technology. So please allow me to end my talk with a quote from Miss Cristina Concepcion, the FCC president in 2016. It's about fulfilling who you are as a person. If you want more, then go for it. Don't let convention or other people stop you. End of quote. So that will be the end of my presentation. Thank you. I hope you learned something from me today. If you want to get in touch with us, this is my email. And if you want to see the events that we've been hosting, you can check my website. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rojas. So Dr. Rojas is part of our in our panel discussion later as well. So we will be able to answer your questions related to her presentation later. Thank you. All right, so the next speaker was the presenter and best paper research in computer science. He is an awardee in the 5th Y4IT Research Summit. He is here today to talk about an AI-assisted diagnostic tool in the form of a web application which can detect pneumonia from X-ray images. Let us all welcome Mr. Ralph Joseph Tegueran.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. I'm Ralph